Hi, Chrissy. Karibu sana. Hello, Alex. Hi, Angie. Karibuni sana. Thank you for joining on time. We really do appreciate the promptness and the sacrifice of time to join us today in our webinar. We are looking forward to a very insightful discussion. And yes, we are glad that you are joining us. As we wait for everyone else, maybe you can share in the chat box um, your name, what your position is in your organization, and where you are joining from. Just like to know in uh, name, position in your organization. Where are you joining from? I am welcoming you. My name is Emmanuel Misiati, and I am a team member here at Osotwa, and I am joining in from Zimmerman, Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, thank you very much, Abdulhamid. Abdulhamid says he is a certified facilitator, passionate trainer, and a mentor and coach. All right, thank you very much, Abdulhamid. You can let us know where you're joining from. Abdulhamid is joining from Nairobi. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can let us know in the chat where you're joining from. Are you in Nairobi like myself and Abdulhamid, or are you joining internationally? All right. Sorry, I got lost there. Otherwise, if you're just joining us, Karibu Sana. Before we get started, we would like to know what's your name, what's your position in the organization you are part of, and where are you joining in from? So you can just let us know in the chat. Yes, you can let us know in the chat. Otherwise, I'd like to know, or we'd like to know, how are you doing today? And according to you, is leadership a title or a role, or is it a behavior? So that's how we're checking in today. Apart from sharing what our name is, where we are joining from, the position in our organization. So how are you doing today? And is leadership, according to you, a behavior, or is it a title? That's where we're starting off today. And this is a question we have been asking in our socials. So it's interesting to see different views, see different or hear different views, different opinions. And now we'd like to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think it is? As always, you can write in the, you can type in the chat. I'll be able to capture your response from there. Okay. So once again, if you're just joining us, Karibu Sana. Thank you very much for making the time. We're just getting to know who is in the session, right? So we'd like to know what your name is, what your position in your organization is, and where you're joining in from. Are you in Kenya like myself? And then how are you doing today? And will you describe leadership as a title or role or as a behavior, and why? Right? So Kevin, which is here, is a business analyst, and he is joining in from Nairobi. Thank you very much, Kelvin. And I'm wondering, according to you, is leadership a title or a behavior, and why would you say so? Yeah. So you can. I think we still have 2 or 3 more minutes for this check-in, so you can just unmute and share if that's okay with you, Kevin. Kelvin. Abdulhamid says leadership is definitely behavior and it can be trained and improved. Thank you very much, Abdulhamid. Very interesting. Uh, thank you, Alex, for sharing with us your name. Yeah. So, guys, is leadership a behavior or a title? And why? Why would you say so? Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, guys. My internet had lagged. My internet had fallen off. But I'm back on. Thank you so much. If you're just joining us, welcome. Thank you very much for making the time and for being here with us today. And we are just getting to, just talk a little bit before we get into the main content for the day. And I had a question that I was asking, guys. According to you, is leadership a behavior or a title? So that's the question I was asking. And I might have fallen off just in case you had written in the chat box. We'll see how to retrieve your answer. Meanwhile, Alex is saying, so he's an accountant at Ascent Group, and according to him, leadership is a behavior since it is defined by the actions and attitudes that inspire and influence others, but not by the title that one holds in an organization. All right. Thank you very much, Alex. And yeah, so what do you think according to you? If you're just joining us and wondering what's happening, please share with us your name, what your position is in your organization, and where you are joining in from. So that's what we're doing. And according to you, is leadership a behavior or is it a title? Okay. I'd like to take maybe two more or three more responses before I can welcome our host. Mhm. Right. And for our last two or three or so responses, I'm open to hearing out someone who can unmute and share with us via voice. Right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I was doing some background research on just leadership and leaders, and I came across some very interesting facts around uh, around leaders and the pain that they experience. So I got to I got on on the research and read a few of the pages, and apparently leaders have pain that registers on different parts of their bodies, right? And so my trivia question for you guys is, where do you think most leaders report to feeling a lot of pain? So there were three. The first one was a headache. The other one was back pain. And the last one was neck pain. So my question to you guys is, knowing the leaders that you know, having interacted with leaders, which of these points do you think most leaders say they register pain? All right. So there's no point or there's no necessarily um very seriousness to this question. So what do you think? Abdulhamid says back pain. What about you? What do you think scored the highest? Doreen says headache. All right. And as you give your answer, maybe you can tell us why you think that. Okay. So Abdulhamid says back pain. Doreen says headache. What about you? What do you think? Do most leaders say they feel pain in their head? Is it a headache? Do they say it's a back pain, or do they say it's a neck pain, and why? I'd like a few more answers. Alex says headache. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious, guy. Why? Why headache? Why back pain? So headache has two votes so far. I'd like a few more votes in. I like a few more votes in. Where do you think most leaders say they register pain? And this is actually research that was done. So different leaders were asked, according to how you experience your body, what's the most common point where you experience pain? So that's my question to you guys. I'll tell you guys the answer and the percentage. Diana says headache because they are solving problems on end or trying to find solution. Thank you very much, Diana. Anyone else? Anyone else? So headache is so far taking lead. Hmm. Headache is so far taking lead. I'd like a few more votes. What do you think most leaders complain to be feeling often? Where do you think? That's my trivia question for the day. I shall give you guys the answer. But for now, what do you think it is and why? I'll take two or three more. I see that our speakers and hosts are here. So I'll give us like 30 more seconds to just chime in your answer. You can take a guess. You can also take a guess. Then I'll tell you what actually is the correct answer. I'll give us 15 more seconds. Elizabeth says back pain because it is a manifestation of stress. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'll take one last answer. Okay, so I guess that's something we can continue thinking about. Otherwise, it was interesting for me to find out that most leaders report having a lot of neck pain. A lot of neck pain. If we had time, I'd tell you why. But for now, I think we are ready. No, sorry guys, we really have to get to the session. For now, we have to get to the session, and I would like to welcome Joy, who will be our host today. Karibu sana, Joy.
Thank you very much, Misiati. I think we can all give him a round of applause. So for those of you who are new to our webinars, we like to use a lot of our emojis to connect. And I think I'm going to ask the speakers can we give Misiati a minute to explain to us why? That's such a cliffhanger, guys. Am I the only one who is wondering? Like, why is it the neck? Like, Misiati, just come back. Just before you may attend conversations, just kwa mawazo kidogo, 1 minute or less.
Well, I will have to decline that for the sake of so that our participants or our members here join the next session. I will tell us in the next session. So sorry, Joy.
Oh, you see what he did there, guys? All right. So welcome everybody. My name is Joy Thuo. I am your host and moderator for today's session. And on the call with me are our wonderful panelists, Angela Wainaina, who has her camera on, and Samuel Mariga, aka K-Sam, who's just turned on his camera. And we're here and ready to get into this conversation on the leadership chain. So thank you for all of you and indulging us on the icebreakers and getting to know you. We would love it for you to share with us any of your questions that you have pending, or whether it's your opinions in the chat sections or anything that you hear that is standing out for you, so that we can connect and actually make this as conversational as possible. So to dive right into it, the first question I'm going to ask to Angela and Samuel is, number one, please introduce yourselves to us. I know you've got a huge accolade of things that you have achieved in your careers, but basically what we're looking forward to hearing is, why are you the one who is on this call? Why did we choose you? Why did I choose you? Why did I ask you to be part of this webinar? Why did you accept? And also tell us, is leadership a behavior or a title as far as you guys are concerned? And then I'll get right into the conversation. So either one of you is free to start. Karibuni sana.
Angela, you can go first.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here, and thank you for joining this call. My name is Angela Wainaina, as Joy has introduced me. I'm a strategic leadership coach. I'm a management consultant. I'm a board advisor, and I'm also a mother. That's who I am. And being here this evening, I thought to myself earlier in the day, why am I being a part of this conversation, as Joy has asked? And it really is because my work really focuses on helping leaders, helping entrepreneurs, helping teams move from what I call potential, because I believe everyone has potential, to performance. And over the years, I've seen that leadership is not defined by your position or your title. It's built through how do you communicate, how credible are you, and how do you influence others positively. Yeah, and that's something that I can say has caused me to say I'm going to be here this evening, and I'm going to have this conversation with all of you. So over to you, Sam.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. for that. My name is Samuel Mariga. I'm a leadership and team development consultant who uses experiential learning and has this mode of training. So experiential learning basically means I curate experiences through games and other ways and other experiences to bring out lessons, especially in leadership. So when I'm normally asked this question, because of being a leadership consultant, I once I came across this definition by John Quincy Adams, and I'm going to read it so that because I normally look at it as a perfect definition for me. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you're a leader. And at this point, I'm going to say this, that we are all leaders, either we know it or not, because who chose the clothes you're going to wear today? You did. Who chose for you to be at this, to log into this webinar? You did. So you influenced yourself. So I do believe that if your actions, and it's a good thing we are going to talk about influence later, but that's the best definition I've come across. And it's a definition I normally use for this question. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, I think from Abdi is one of the best participants we have in the room. He's hearted almost everything. The rest of you, where are you? Let me see if I can gather any reactions from the rest of you. Thank you, Doreen, as well. So I didn't introduce myself aside from my name, but for those of you who have seen the poster, for those of you who are familiar with Osotwa, I'm a team dynamics expert. In terms of what I do is allow and support organizations to create engaging activities so that they're able to have more cohesive relationships and be able to build their company, especially when you're in that SME phase, when you're moving from being a solopreneur to having a small team all the way to growing, expanding, and scaling, right? And one of our biggest ethos is on the skills of soft skills and how they actually enable people to work better with each other. And for those of you who have gotten from what Angie and Sam are talking about, there is a chain and there is a science towards building out performance and being able to recreate the inspiration, the resilience, the development in terms of how do you become the leader that you want to be. And that's actually how and what inspired us to create this conversation and why we're calling it the leadership chain, right? Is that there's a chain of events and activities. And to answer the question for myself in terms of, is leadership technically a behavior item, or is it something to do with role and performance that you're doing? And in more senses than not, it tends to be looked at mostly from the perspective of, I have a title as the CEO of this company, as the lead person in front of an organization, training somebody, taking a client through somebody. So you end up thinking you are the lead in that perception. But a lot of what is coming out in this conversation is we're going to rely on leadership as a soft skill. And Sam has brought it out perfectly, yeah, is that everybody is a leader, regardless of wherever you're coming from. There is something in your life that is cascading you into a motion of decision making and making sure that you are moving into what you need to do. And you tend to carry people along with you, right? And because of that, there's always this question of credibility. So why should I be following this person? And even when you're asked to be the lead in something, and you always have that imposter syndrome of, why is it that me, I was the one who was selected, right? And when Angela is talking about how do you move from your potential to actually getting into, yes, I'm gonna own this seat as being the leader that I know I am, that people should follow me, that I am the person to answer all of these questions, right? And that's what we're gonna get into today. And my first question that comes on board for our panelists, as we're talking about, and I'll pick it up from where Sam left off, in terms of, there's always the question of, am I really the person who is the leader in the room, right? And let me just ask you guys to just be a little vulnerable and share with us some of your experience within growing and developing and to becoming the leaders that you are for the companies that you're running. Also, I know you guys have extensive experience in other organizations that you were in previously. So what has been some of the most defining experiences that have shaped your leadership journey up until today? I think we can start there. And Fungua Roho. This is a safe space, guys. Let's give them all the parts so that they can open themselves up to telling us. Yes, guys? All right. So karibuni.
Sam, you want me to go first? Okay. You know, Sam is a ladies first man. So I'm going to take the cue and move on. All right. So for me, I think Joy, when I think back in terms of my work and my career, I worked in a consulting firm, and that's where my background has been. And even now, as an entrepreneur, I work a lot with teams in consulting. And one of the things that I found, particularly earlier in my career when I was a manager, managing teams on client projects, because I used to do a lot of client projects in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, I used to find that I felt I was always under pressure to give the right answers as a leader, or to always have an answer. And what I've learned from that, and even now, is that leadership is not about having the right answers. It's also about asking the right questions, and also help co-creating solutions together with those that you're with. So you can't have all the solutions. And so I found myself very challenged, because I always, when I was with clients, I always found myself in situations where a client asks you a question and they expect you to have an answer. And I realized it's okay to say you don't know. As a leader, it's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to ask, what do you think, right? And those challenges also, when faced with those challenges, I started to tell myself, listen to what they're asking. Think about what you can also ask them so that they also come up with a solution. And so what that has done for me, it's given me grace. When things don't go as planned, it's not a train smash. Yeah. And it's also helped me connect better with people, because as a leader, you need to connect, you need to have empathy. And especially where we have doubt, you're asking yourself questions. It really allows me to now meet whoever I'm with, I'll meet you at your point and we'll work together. Yeah.
All right. Sam?
Okay. For me, one of the things I've learned in leadership, um, it's the ability to deal with complex situations through staying calm. Because I feel like, from my experience for the many years I've been in leadership development, and the kind of questions that are normally most leaders ask me, they face the situations they're trying to solve are normally situations that are brought about by high pressure situations. And one of the books that I really recommend for many people to read is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because habit one is be proactive, and he talks about pausing before reacting. And I feel like if there's one skill that I have learned personally, and that I can help leaders with, that I've come to appreciate, is the ability to pause to look at the outcomes you want to see, the influence you want to make, so that you can see the desired results that you're looking for. I'm going to give a very interesting example. Before I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I used to have road rage. So there's this day I'm sitting in traffic, just like anyone else, and this matatu comes and cuts through, and I'm angry. I was sitting with a friend, and I remember my friend looking at me. I was completing this matatu, what. For those who don't understand what matatu is, the streaming from international, it's public means of transport. And I remember at some point, after a few minutes, the traffic has cleared. He told me, I feel like you left. You're not the Sam who I left home with. Because that guy clearly went with you, and he's probably somewhere laughing or cutting someone else, and he's even forgotten about you. And I realized how I lost myself. And how many times in life as a leader have you lost yourself? How many times have you lost yourself just because you didn't stay calm? And I remember we had such an extensive conversation around, yeah, someone can say you're a fool, and you also say, yes, even you're a fool. And you realize if I was coming up, I would have asked myself, am I actually a fool? No, I'm not. So me responding, I'm actually giving validation that I'm actually a fool, and so are you. And how many other situations in life can we apply this one principle in? Where you come, look at the outcome you want to see. So that's one of my greatest lessons, even as I continue to grow and learn. Thank you.
I love where you guys are coming from. And I think the reality of being able to think about yourself in the growing essence of being a leader has a lot to do with this vulnerability that both Angie and Sam are talking about. Yeah. And I'll always like to circle back to where we started this conversation from the Osoto perspective, which is on some of the principles of communication, which is what Angie and Sam are actually talking about. When Angie talks about the reality of she learned how to listen, she had to start pausing and listen to what is being asked of me, getting to the point of saying, I don't know, and then being able to give it back, have a co-creation with somebody. What Sam is also talking about in terms of learn how to pause, yeah, receive the feedback that you're being given so that you're able to know how do you adjust according to what's happening in front of you. And I think this is going to cascade very well into the next question that I'm going to ask, as I also relate it to my own journey within a big question that comes to me more times than not in terms of I am a young person, I am with older people who have more experience than myself, even being the leader in the room, even with younger people than me. How do I also manage to do that? And I think, as Sam talked about getting carried away, part of my experience growing up in being adulting and then being an entrepreneur and running businesses and also working under some other companies was getting overwhelmed, especially by the requests. Yeah, when Angie talks about that you're supposed to have all of the answers. And I think, especially when you're younger, and even if you're in a young team, there's that essence of I need to get it right. Yeah, I'm supposed to get it right so that I don't mess up, so that I'm not the one who's going to be at fault here. And not to mention anybody else who is supposed to be under me, I don't want them to get in trouble as well, right? Or I also don't want to lose this money. I don't want to lose this client. How do I make sure I'm doing the right thing? And I think within that, I've had to learn a lot about how to communicate so that I'm even able to understand expectations. How am I able to get other people's expectations so that I'm able to manage the expectations from there? And I think one of my questions that I'd like to give back to the panel as I continue this conversation is within your own experience as a consultant and as a business owner in the very first place, how have you managed to step up? I think in terms of leadership, there's always the question of, yeah, you have to learn on the job. Nobody's really gonna teach you, because even I think Angela as a coach and Sam also as a consultant, you can attest to the fact that this stuff, there's nobody, what they say is that it's the school of life is going to teach you these things, right? So much as you're training, even in the training rooms, it's about the principles, but in terms of experience, it's about trial and error. So how do you actually manage through the missteps and the challenges so that you're able to connect better with clients, with team members, and how do you support people in understanding how do they navigate that? How do they move through the missteps, the challenges, being able to connect with people, particularly especially on a team level and on a client level, so that we can get this ball rolling in terms of let's talk about where the shoe actually pinches, right? So I'll hand it to Angie because we know Sam is ever the gentleman, but Sam, there's a point where I'm going to ask you to go first.
Thank you, Joy. I think that's yes. Sam will start soon. I think for me, it's really about being empathetic, and empathy is something that has become more and more important over the last couple of years, I'd say. There was a time when people didn't understand what empathy meant, but were probably practicing it. And I think if you're able to be empathetic, which comes with listening, which comes with understanding, which comes with taking a step back, what you're able to do is connect. And once you connect with a team or with the people that you're working with, and that's what I've also realized over time, is you move forward, right? And when people see that you're being empathetic, they also start to trust you. And when you're able to build that trust, then you're able to move forward together. And I think as a leader, it's about moving forward together, not alone. Yes, leaders lead, and they say people follow, but I also believe that leaders do follow. And it's important to show empathy in whatever situation you're in, to practice it, try to practice it all the time. And for me, I think that's what I'd say.
Thank you, Angela. Empathy, it's one of those words that are very powerful. And even what I'm going to share is in the same neighborhood as empathy, where number one, I've always believed that you need to communicate your goal as effectively and as simply as possible to the team you're leading. Otherwise, without a goal, they don't know what they're aiming at. And if you're maybe tuned in and you're in an organization and you're a leader there, the question I'll normally ask you is, can you explain the vision of your organization like you would to a 3-year-old? Because mostly, and Angie, we've worked together for many years, and you know very well that mostly we'll ask this question in our leadership workshops: what is the vision of the organization? And most people will chew at blank. And it's because most people don't, if this is not communicated, then you are actually not leading. All of you are part of, I'll just say, you're busy. But busy towards what? It is not known. Then the headaches come, the neck pains come. So if a leader communicates effectively the vision or the end goal of what they want to achieve, that really makes the work easier. And this requires someone who looks at as his people as, these are guys who can help me go there. If your vision is clear, then you even know the people to bring on board. At times, I have clients who've complained, oh, my team is like this, like that. And I just ask them a simple question: do they actually know why you guys are here? And most of the question would be, oh, this is only known by a few people in the organization, the vision that is. So my simple answer would be, please communicate your vision effectively. Then let them now come and help you achieve your vision.
I really love where you guys are coming from. So I keep taking a few notes, right? And I think to follow through on what Angie and Sam are talking about in terms of empathy and vision, right? One of the things I have correlated in my journey that has also made it easier for me to connect with not just team members and consultants, but also with my clients. I think one of the main components that needs to be considered is I like to correlate things. Yeah. So being able to think about it in the context of when somebody talks about a vision, it's that forecasting. When you see in your mind what's supposed to be the end goal of this entire thing. So that if I was to put into a step-by-step motion, that even as Angie and Sam are talking about, who do I need to actually get into this? What is the feeling that I probably need to counter to be able to get this done? And being able to ask people the right questions to also get them to answer back to me in terms of what are their expectations, so that by the time we're talking about co-creation, how do we have something that we're banking on together, so that as we're able to move forward, what does it mean to actually decide that based on my trial and error of I have gotten this wrong the first time with a client, even being able to say there's been experiences where this has been a shortcoming or an oversight. I would like us to go through this. And I think this is also to do with how you communicate it, right? That you need to pause and slow down parts of your conversations to be able to say, I'm not just doing things to tick off a list, but I'm actually doing things to be able to follow through. And I think this is where Angie would agree with me that this is how people actually start to gauge performance, right? Is that when you start to systemize and actually develop into a consistency of motion of, yeah, we've actually decided that this is the best way to go with this, because as far as our services, as far as our ability is concerned, then we're able to figure out what are the challenges that we're going to anticipate. And I think this is the significance of always bringing in the humanity of things. Yesterday I was on a call where somebody asked me about what's the relevance of bringing in this humanness? And I think I love that Angie brought out that in this day and age of mental wellness and sensitivity, there's a lot of sensitization, right? And when we think about sensitization, it's being able to understand in case in point of we're always addressing, are you getting triggered? We're not talking about the challenges in all essence. Challenges sometimes are not primarily just systemic in terms of structures and processes that are there. Yeah. Challenges can also be internal challenges, like what's happening from the inside that's making you overwhelmed. I mean, to the extent where a lot of us, for those of you for imposter syndrome, please raise your hands and give us a nice love heart emoji. How do you manage to actually build through your confidence? And I think this I resonate, especially for those of you who are within your journey of when you're in your mid-20s up until like your mid-30s of growing through the hustle before you've gotten that validation of your title, of your role, but you're always being pushed and thrust into, you're supposed to grow, you're supposed to develop, and you're supposed to move. Yeah. And I think to get into getting the juice of the best of our speakers, I would love to hear from Angie and Sam to be able to tell us a little bit more about when you're thinking about developing this empathy, being able to think about your goal setting and your vision setting, to be able to improve yourself as a leader, and you're trying to move into thinking about how do I improve myself as a leader so that I can build my confidence, my credibility. And I think also when we're talking about the empathy, there's humility that's also supposed to be inside it so that somebody feels like they're approachable or that they're able to approach people in a very fast place. What are some of the tips and the tricks or pieces of advice that you give your clients or even people that you've worked with to be able to boost their ability to move through the trials and challenges that they've experienced and being able to adjust so that they're more confident, that they feel like they're more credible, and also to feel that humanity in terms of being able to adapt into a humility as a best practice, right? So are there any comments or examples and experiences that you can share?
Okay, I'll take this one first since good. That is a very good question, and I don't want to sound cliche, but what I believed in is the ability to lead yourself. If mostly you look at people and how they carry themselves and how how they've led themselves into success, into relationships, in health, and all of a sudden you start thinking, I think this guy can make a good leader. Mostly, and it's good that you brought about imposter syndrome. And for those of us who don't know what imposter syndrome, to just define it in an easier way, it's one of those moments where you're doing something but you don't really believe you're doing it to the best of your ability, or you think that people are looking at you, so you look like an imposter. Like you're like, people will think I don't know this, people will think I don't know this. Now, number one, be honest with yourself. Are you leading people towards something even you don't understand? Number two, have you communicated it effectively? And are you someone who's teachable and you can ask for feedback? And that can only be caught by how you carry yourself as an individual. So for example, most times than not, if you go into a room and someone looks in shape and you need to fight off a rat, you're going to all look at that person who looks like they're in shape, they can jump and they can do it. Because lead us to what this starts, because you look like you're well able. You've led yourself looking like you're healthy and you're fit. If it's someone who's good in statistics and the task deserves that, and maybe when people introduce themselves, this person said, by the way, I have a background in this. So before people can come to you, do you actually believe that you understand what you're leading people towards? So you need to be very honest with yourself. Once you're honest with yourself and you know that you've mastered whatever it is that you're leading people towards, it even becomes easy for you to be asked questions. I have seen leaders who give instructions and disappear because they don't want even to be asked questions, because even me, I don't know. And so people cast doubts on your leadership ability. The other thing is this: you need to be someone who actually masters the art of communicating to the heart, not the mind. And what I mean by this is if you are rallying people towards achieving a certain goal, talk to them with the simplest language possible that their hearts can feel like they understand what you say. Move their hearts. Otherwise, mostly we use jargons, complicated language, so that we see, because even as we want to seem complicated. And so you're not reaching this person's heart. So they just get to their minds. And once you use complicated jargons and everything, they feel like as if they're dumb. So they don't feel empowered by you. They won't ask you for feedback. Now, instead of them jumping straight to the task, they'll go and start doing research on the jargon you used. Guess who's losing? You and your team are losing because now you're wasting time. So number one, be very honest with yourself. Use simple language. Believe in it. Believe that whatever you're leading people towards, it's something you also want to achieve as a person. And then I said I'm in experiential learning. When you're doing experiential learning, you're having fun. Please look like someone who's actually enjoying whatever it is you're doing. No one wants to be led to a place where you're telling me to go into that cave, and the way you're looking is like in that cave, there's the most dangerous animal I've ever seen. Look like you're having fun. Look like you're actually enjoying what it is that you're doing. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Sam. And I think, Angie, if you're going to add anything towards it, I'd also like you to just add in a little bit in terms of some of the practical ways that you either coach leaders in terms of how to check in with themselves. Because as Sam has talked about, it's your honesty with yourself first, right? So whatever you'd add in, please do, but also do give us some practical ways that you have seen or experienced leaders being able to check in with themselves to be able to create that alignment of honesty and being able to communicate to the heart. I'm going to be stealing that one, Kesam. So yeah, thanks, Angie.
Well, I think thanks, Kesam. Just to add to what Kesam has said is that I think one of the underpinning things is your values and how do you bring those forward. And I always remember from my experience, I'm sure the people in this call, I'm sure there's a couple of us who have been promoted and you're told you're now going to be leading, you're a manager or whatever it might be, you're a supervisor.
Guys, if Angie is talking to you, Tebu had her, so she's speaking directly to you.
And you're wondering, okay, yes, I've been promoted, I'm happy, this is fantastic. And then the rubber meets the road and you're wondering, okay, how am I supposed to change? Okay, what does this leading mean, right? And a lot of the times, and I am a victim, you start to copy the leadership style of your boss because that's what you've seen, that's who you worked with, that's who you know. But just come back, and I always say, what I learned the hard way. I started to emulate somebody else's leadership style. It was not me. So I went back and I was like, what is this thing? Of course, asking around, looking for a mentor. And one of the things I was asked is, what are your values, right? And if you're grounded in terms of your values and you have clarity, that is where you align first as you're leading. And Sam and I always talk about values when we're running our leadership workshops. But going back to Joy's question, the check-in, I think it's asking a couple of things. What's my intention? Am I here to inform people? Am I here to question people? Am I here to influence people, right? So really just checking in with yourself. And then I think the second thing is really asking yourself, my emotional state, as leaders or wherever we are leading people, you carry a lot, you carry a lot. And your emotional state will influence the way you lead. So really checking in and saying, how am I feeling? Am I tired? Did I have a long night? How did my day start, right? Am I depressed? Am I happy? What's the emotion that I'm carrying? Because the emotion that you carry is the emotion that you're going to project, right? If you're projecting energy, people will feel that energy. If you're projecting fatigue, people will be slack. And that's just how human beings are. So really checking in, what's my emotional state of mind? Am I a red, a green, a yellow, a blue? How am I feeling? And then I think the last thing is, as I go out there and I'm communicating, and Sam has talked about communication, what impact is my communication having on others, right? So in terms of what I'm saying, my tone, um, what is that having what is that, how is that likely to impact the people that I'm talking to? So if it's my team, I'm walking into a morning meeting, how am I communicating, right? So I think those are the three things I'd say. Check in terms of your emotional state. Yeah, what is your intention? And what and how are you intending to communicate?
Thank you so much for that, Angie. In terms of trials and tribulations, guys, I'm about to put in a check-in for myself. And you guys, please laugh with me, send emoticons, send help, like basically, because there is a small mistake that happened at the beginning of this entire journey that I would like us to rectify for what is currently available. So, are you guys going to give me space and grace? I need emojis. I need either the hearts or give me laughing emojis. Audience of 50, please. I beg your humble forgiveness, or please. We normally record this session so that we can prove to people there's people listening and there's people resonating. So if you do not mind, and I hope this does not make you camera shy in any way, please still remember to add in your questions at any given point in time. But I would like to turn on the recording so that even those of you who have joined in will still be able to catch the recording when we send out our thank you message. So here we go as we continue the conversation, and we live and we learn in trials and challenges. But I love what you guys have brought in terms of values and being able to understand when we're talking about the chain of leadership. One of the things that we had brought out from our previous conversation on communication, and I think for those of you who are hearing what Angie and Sam are talking about, it really does start with your self-communication. When we're talking about check-ins, and even at Osotwa, there's some team members from some of the companies that we support. We have supported them in terms of as basic as when you're trying to set an intention, you do actually need to set a check-in with everybody in the room. So for example, one of the ways that we've done that, even like today during our meeting, is basically getting you guys to say, what's your name? Where are you coming from? We've centered you into the question of what is leadership supposed to be with and be for you, right? Primarily because when you're thinking about where you're coming from, you're not just the leader that you show up as, like not just in front of the audience that you are. There's yourself from home, yourself from your friends. There's a whole personality that's there, right? And I mean, even when we're talking about personalities that you connect with, when Kesam talks about connecting, communicating to the heart, why is it that it's some people that you can communicate easier to? It's more or less because either some of the things that you said prove that you do have a value towards something. And when somebody is looking at you, they're like, yes, I think you value the same thing that I value as well. And this is what, when we talk about building into credibility, where does credibility actually come from? And I think you've heard it from the consultants and the experts themselves. It's not about the jargon that you use. Sometimes it's also about bringing in the simplicity. Yeah. How would you explain it to a 3-year-old? And I think it may sound trivialized to say something that it should be explained to a 3-year-old, but in context, when I talk about it in sessions with clients as well as with in training, is to understand how do you bring it down to the most human level. Yeah, maybe putting it as a 3-year-old is diminishing in terms of the age factoring. But if you think about the gentleness that you approach a child with. Yeah. And even when we talk about the grace and the space that you need to have to be able to set the tone, create a clarity in terms of what is the vision that I'm trying to create? What is this supposed to be intention? Am I communicating? Am I brainstorming? Do I need other people to co-collaborate with me so that I'm not the only one who's carrying this conversation? And I think in terms of as we're bridging over into some of the main principles that we need to consider and how does this also roll into performance, And I think for some of you, you're seeing how this rolls into performance, because if you're not talking well with each other, then you start to go head to head. Then you end up having meetings that are there for the eternity, and you're not wondering, how come we're not quite making any headway in these things, right? But the main question that I'd like to ask and throw back to Sam and Angie is, there's always the question of, within the dynamic of whether it's in a team setting, but so long as you're leading people, you're in a set of people, whether it's consultants as well, there's always the assertion. Yeah. How do you assert yourself as a leader so that when you're talking about creating that influence, that credibility, how can you earn people's respect in terms of showing up as a leader, in terms of how do you assert yourself, as opposed to just, my title demands it, I have said so, mimi ndio kujua, so you end up saying that. So yeah, Angie, maybe you can be the first one to go.
Sure, sure. That's a really good question, Joy. How do you assert yourself? And I think one of the ways to assert, and I'm talking about assertion, not aggressive assertion, is by starting to build trust. And I think one of the things I say is, you can assert yourself as a leader by doing the things that you do you do them consistently, right? Do you follow through, right? And do you do it with integrity? And if you're able to consistently do that, there's an assertion that you're carrying that is not necessarily loud, and you're saying, this is how I am as a leader. I think those are the three things, because your actions speak louder than words. Your reliability speaks louder than words. And people watch. And that's how you build your credibility, and that's how you build that. It's almost a passive assertion, but it's built over time, and that's how I would look at it.
Wonderful. And I think, Sam, if you were to add on that, you already talked about Steve Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people. What are some of the daily habits that leaders can actually adopt to be able to create that positivity, in terms of being able to create that trust, that consistency, that flow, to create that authentic background, to be able to be the leader that they need to be, so that they can assert themselves as leaders better?
Okay. One of my roles, I believe actually one of my most important roles, is that I'm a father. And what I've come to learn is culture is caught, not taught. And I know maybe some of you have actually interacted with that quote. Culture is caught, not taught. So there's this time. So I mean, one of the things I do is I'm also in wellness, and I like exercising a lot. So there's this day, it found me at my friend's place. And that day was push-up day. So he was holding me accountable. He told me, today is push-up day. So I don't care what you're going to do, but I have a carpet here, like some space. Then you start doing. I started doing it. After I had finished, we were just having a conversation. The daughter started doing push-ups, saying, I want to be strong like Uncle Kesam. So I would have come to that house and told this child, exercise so that you can be strong. This child, I want to believe, has seen me centrally helping my friends carry things from the car, do some, run around with them and play football. But on this day, because the outcome for her to be strong and fit is to exercise, she saw me do that, what I say. And now, without anyone telling her, just out of her own subconscious mind, she started doing push-ups. If you want to be assertive, you have no choice. You have to be an example. And that's why we have the quote that says, to him who is given, more is expected. Because you're a leader. You chose to be a leader. You chose to be the manager for this project. And maybe that this department that deals with customers, you have to be the epitome of customer experience. It can never be the other way around. You can't be the one telling people. And remember, if you watch movies epic adventure movies. The kings of old used to be at the front line. Why did that used to elicit so much passion? It's because if the king is at the front, who am I? If my manager keeps time, who am I? If my manager is an effective communicator, who am I? If my manager understands the value of this organization, who am I? So you cannot run away from being a role model because no leader leads from the back. It's the front line for all of us as leaders. If you actually believe that your leaders, I'll repeat again, to him who more is given, more is expected.
I absolutely love that you started with that, yeah. And in my experience, even in terms of supporting teams within understanding their team dynamics, especially as they are growing, and you've been used to, for instance, doing it by yourself, and now you need to have other people that you're leading and moving forward with. I'd like to piggyback off some of the things that both of you have talked about, right? And I'll circle it even further back in terms of one of the things that was said earlier was about your belief in yourself. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of expectation whenever we talk about that saying for the person that has been given much, much is expected of them. And I like to flip that back in terms of a personal attribute that you need to think about when we're talking about your values, even as a leader, is the value of gratitude. Yeah. When you think about yourself and you think about the journey that you have lived, you manage to persevere, get through school, whether you've done postgraduate, undergraduate, whatever line of work you've actually managed to get there, right? And I love that Doreen is bringing out the concept of being an overthinker. And I think even in terms of having an attitude of gratitude, have you ever had an attitude of gratitude towards even the simplest unit of yourself in that I have managed to get this far? To have gotten this far, I have done good things. So even if you're already struggling with time management, even if you're struggling with building your own confidence, it starts with your self-belief. Yeah. Do I believe that when I am speaking, even me, I like what I'm saying. Even me, I would listen to what I'm saying. When Kesam talks about do you show that you're enjoying it? Yeah. Do you enjoy yourself speaking? Do you enjoy the work that you do? And even if you don't enjoy the work that you do, a terrible example I've given to team members that I've worked with is, do you enjoy the money that you get? So if for those of you who enjoy the money that you get, see, at least you give me a heart emoji or a celebration, yes, you know. So think about it in terms of you have to personalize it, yeah. And that's what I mean by the attitude of gratitude. Yeah, you need to get into being able to understand that when you're talking about it's what's caught. Yeah, even you, what have you caught in terms of your attitude towards how you want to assert yourself, how you want to be seen, how you see yourself? When you look in the mirror, you're like, that's somebody that I would follow, that's somebody that I would listen to, right? So then when we talk about teachability, it's also that thing for, yeah, that person that I would follow, I'm also willing to tell them some feedback so that they learn, so that they can grow, so that they can improve, so that by the time somebody is also giving you feedback in terms of, I need to grow, I need to improve. And I think one of the principles that we're going to go into in terms of how do you improve yourself as an effective leader, whether you're in a small business or a growing organization, or whether you're just even like a team member and you're trying to say, what's my next step for myself moving forward? How do you actually decide to create an accountability? And I love that Sam brought that up, because one of the reels that I listened to on TikTok, not TikTok, on Instagram the other day was that the highest form of self-love is accountability. Yeah. And whenever we think about leadership, we are always holding our leaders to a standard. So even the reality of people looking up to you and being able to assert yourself, people are looking at you for a standard, right? And that's why we have coaches like Angie and Sam, and why we go for trainings about leadership, yeah, to be able to understand how do I become more effective, so that even if it's my personality about strict boundaries and being a strict personality in the very first place, yeah, I am seeing all of the comments that you guys are putting in and being able to understand how do you adjust in the meantime, yeah. And to go back to you and Angie, what are some of the most effective practices, in terms of formalizing structure and improving, not just for a company setup, but even for myself as I'm trying to step up into this role, as I'm trying to improve and grow. What are some of the things that can be done to make myself an effective leader when it comes to improving my ability to become more structured, to be more disciplined, to be more accountable? What are some of the things that somebody should think about doing?
Okay, so I can go first, and then Angela,
Mhm.
you can talk on matters performance. So what I would say, number one, is a good leader, when you're coming up with structures, they have to value both results and relationship. So that when I say relationship, I mean the people.
Mhm.
So mostly I would say this because for small businesses, including mine, because I own a consultancy firm, what I would say is a business takes the personality of the owner. So if you're disorganized and everything, your business tends to take that personality. If you're very organized, it also takes that personality. If you're people oriented, you'll realize that most times you can be going for a coffee for a business deal and you end up just talking about, oh, is it raining? Basically it takes your personality. So number one, you as the business owner need to be very self-aware and know where your bias is. Are you results oriented? Are you relationship oriented? That you don't just further the business, that your business is not one-sided. That you're able to sit down and say, okay, this structure is coming in. It's a performance management system, whatever customer experience system, but it has to capture the people and also capture. You have to make sure that you're getting results. So that's normally before Angie comes in. That's one of the main key points I want to highlight. Then maybe Angela can talk about performance and governance.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. I think it's also looking at being very clear about how you do things. This is the way things are done. This is the way we do things. And what the reason I'm saying that is because that's what brings around structure. So that people understand this is, if this comes in, this is how it is done, or this is the step by, these are the steps that we follow. And that's what we call process to get from point A to point B, input into to output. So when you have that and somebody comes in, they know exactly what needs to be done. Sam has also talked about the type of person that you are as a leader or an owner. So as a business owner, one of the things I'd say is also when you're in addition to bringing structure, the people that you're bringing in also bring people who are different from you in terms of your personality, because sometimes you tend to lean towards people who have a similar character to you because that's who you can align to. Hire people who think very differently and who will challenge you, because that is what will help your business grow or help you grow as an individual and as a leader. So, and I think from a point of governance, it's also being able to say, yes, this is how we do things, but if things do go wrong, what happens, right? Who takes responsibility? So really having clear roles and responsibilities in terms of who is responsible for what, when it comes to decisions, when it comes to action, and that way you find if you're able to put those structures in place, it builds a foundation for good governance. And it doesn't matter how small your business is. And when I say small, it can be, your business can be 2 people, right? And when the steps are there, the way we do things is laid out clearly. As your business grows, then you find it is much, much easier to have that governance or way of doing things followed as the business grows.
I love
And
that.
just to add something, I want to talk about the aspect of sustainability. Even as you're coming up with structures, please let these be structures that can serve you. Let them be adaptable, but also have the short term and the long term. Because just because something works in the short term does not mean that's what needs to happen in the long term. And then also have a structure that tracks successes and failures. So that you're not successful this year, and then next year you're asking, what is that we did last year with this team? No, 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 no. Or with this task. So have a structure also that you can be looking upon. You are recording all these things. Thank God we are living in the information age with the AI and everything. You can have these tools. So yeah, thanks.
Wonderful. I'm so glad that there's three things that both of you have brought up that I love to hunker down on when it comes to dynamics. Yeah. And somebody has actually written in the chat section, I think it's Abdi as well as Doreen. When it comes to, no, not Doreen, yeah, it's Abdi who's talking about what happens when you have difficult team members and strict boundaries, and how do you work out letting them have a shared experience, right? And I think whenever we're talking about processes, yeah, and guys, by a show of hands, processes always sounds like such a big, ambiguous word, right? So I don't know if I should give Angie, like in 1 minute, if you could break down the simplest way of how you'd explain what is a process. And I think, Sam, when you talk about structures, what's the simplest way that you'd bring out processes and structures, primarily to our team members? I think it's easier when you're a business owner or when you've been in it for a little longer. But yes, just on a bare minimum, because there's something I'm looking for, then I'm able to jump on it. Yes, so Angie or Sam?
Okay, let me try. So a process is what you do. Let's say you have a task, and your task is we want to hire a sales manager. So the process for hiring a sales manager has various steps. You'll do a job description, then you'll put out an advert, then you receive the applications, you shortlist, you interview. Those steps are what form the process. And the process has to have an output. What is the output? The output is that you have hired a sales manager. Yeah. So so in the process, there are people doing that. So the people who are involved in that process could be the HR manager, it could be an analyst, it could be, so there's the steps, and then there's the people who help to execute that process. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Kesam, you can bring it home with how this builds a whole structure in the simplest, shortest way so that I can pick it up, because we're just 15 minutes in. Guys, please remember to ask as many questions. Thank you for the 5 people who have added questions, but we will give the last 5 minutes for people to unmute and also ask any of the questions that you may have. Yes, Sam.
So you just to repeat the question, to understand the question, you're asking how now the structures feed into processes, right?
No, what's the simplest way of processes actually build a structure? Yes.
Okay. So processes build a structure. So I'll put it this way. So structures are, think of them like the system that supports something. For example, if you're building a house, you know, there are floors, there's the wall. Why are you putting this door there and not here? So for example, if one of your processes is, let's say you're in the service industry, someone goes online, they log in. So what structures you need to put in place? So your processes will inform the structures you need. So that's, and I normally give this example because these are one of the big hardware stores in Kenya. We went in and we were trying to have a leadership training with them. And when we got to the processes and structures, what I had done prior, I went to their website and I sent a WhatsApp message to the number they put on me. So you see, their processes is you go online and you go to their WhatsApp. No one responded for a week or two. So on the 3rd week, when I was doing a training, I told them, by the way, you guys have my order, if not delivered. Why? Because the structure is not working. So that's how I would put it simple, that you understand how the process is, so you need the structure to support. Thanks.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I think this is, I wanted to bring this back and I wanted to close this in terms of our questions before we go even into answering anything on governance. Yeah. Because when we talk about processes, structures, and then we move into how does this create the whole functionality, the governing of this entire business, right? And in the dynamics question, one of the things that always becomes a messy and tricky conversation is about autonomy. in terms of either being micromanaged by the person that you are leading, or even in terms of being micromanaged by clients, in terms of who is really the person in charge here. Me, I'm the one who is the leader, but you're the one who is coming in between, right? And especially when we're talking about it, we talked a lot about being connected to people and how to fulfill what's needed and what's necessary. And it does come down to what's your step-by-step process. And remember, one of the questions I had asked earlier was about how do you even understand your shortcomings in terms of some of the trials, challenges that you've had to go through to be able to become a better leader. Yeah. And if we're talking about empathy and teachability, and before we even go into hard structure skills in terms of principles of leadership, which we're going to be offering in our training that is coming up in February, where Angie and Sam are going to be delivering. The main component that's also adjusted within there is, and what we're also bringing up in terms of understanding your self-leadership. Yeah, your self-leadership is also in terms of understanding when we're talking about that you should have a vision. What do you set as your intentionality for whatever you're leading? What is your step-by-step process to get to that outcome? What Angie is talking about, there must be a deliverable at the end. And I think one of the heaviest expectations, and I think even for the question about dealing with hard team members, yeah, people that are quote unquote ungovernable, or who do not want to listen, or I feel like I'm too young, where the components of your triggers and your imposter syndrome starts to come up, yeah, whenever you're trying to take the lead on something. The reality of it is, when you start to get better at humanizing your step-by-step process, that you're able to make it that it's not just about me, it's also about the people who are there, so that you can also challenge what's there and what's available in terms of, if it's a strict, and this is why I like that Sam brought out the short-term versus long-term goals of how you've set up yourself. Even in terms of, this time round as a leader, I am going to try it this way. The next time round, I am going to try it another way. What Angie is now bringing up as far as the step-by-step processes towards doing something, so that you can become more effective and get better, so that you're able to assess yourself. Yeah, assess yourself in being able to connect with people to get to the end result. If you didn't get to the end result that you are looking for, then what do you do then? Yeah. And I think whenever we're talking about the dynamics, it's always being able to do that tug of war between, there's what I need on an individual level, there's what the company needs, there's what the department needs, and where everybody else is supposed to come into play. And this is why Sam was talking about sustainability. Yeah. And to be a sustainable leader, and I always like to bring this up in terms of, one of the biggest components that most leaders face as a challenge is burnout. Yeah, because you're burdened with the weight of the crown and leading and doing all of these things. And sometimes you feel like, for those of you who are resonating, munipe, like, let me see the love. Yeah, let's connect, right? I'm joking, but in all seriousness, right? It's being able to feel like you're doing all of this alone. Nobody else is stepping up. Nobody else is going to come and save you. And the saying that's currently there is, nobody's going to come and save you except your future self, right? And your future self is the person that has already taken the lead to know what to do best. Yeah. So even yourself as a leader, when you're thinking about, how am I supposed to show up? How would you lead yourself in this current situation? If you looked at your future self and they were giving you advice, how would you pause? How would you take a breath? How would you decide to communicate better? How would you connect by the heart? How would you decide that? And I think one of the best things that has also come out in this conversation is about having personalities that either are different from yours or similar to yours. And I think Angie was the one who brought out in terms of hire people who are different, but also for those of you who end up in companies where there's people who have striking differences from you, how do you adjust? Yeah, are you richer for it so that you can actually have, maybe somebody needs to teach you their perspective, as opposed to being able to go into, there's just this way and it's supposed to go like that. So that when we also talk about creativity in leadership, when we talk about innovation in leadership, there's a lot more that's there. So I'm gonna ask the last questions that are on the chat section. And if anybody would like to ask a question directly to our panelists, I will allow you for 5 minutes to raise up your hand, unmute, to be a effective communicator, go straight to your question. Yeah. I promise you, given our background context in the work that we do, we've probably got an idea in terms of what the context is. So anybody who would like to raise a question before I start reading out the questions that are there? Anybody going once? If you're good, please give us a thumbs up so we can go to the questions in the chat section. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Levi. All right. Thank you, Mumbi. Yes, thank you, Jesse. All right. Great, great, great. So, one of the questions that's there by Doreen Kezia is, how do you stay organized as an overthinker? I would be happy to answer that one because I am a very heavy overthinker. Sam is nodding vigorously because he's known me for a long time. All right, next question that's there. What are some practical ways to improve verbal communication and express thoughts more confidently to the team? Sam, would you be happy to take that one on? All right, and I think I'd like to give the question on how do you deal with difficult teams having strict boundaries and letting them have shared experiences? Angie, I think I would be happy to give you that one, as well as um, structures that trap success and failures. All right, I think Elizabeth, if you could expound a little bit on that one, but otherwise, I think I'll start with the first question in terms of how do you stay organized as an overthinker? The simplest answer towards that, and I think I'll connect with what Sam had said earlier on, is the significance of also being able to write down things. In the age of ChatGPT, you can finally offload on somebody and they won't emotionally shut down because it's an AI robot. Use ChatGPT to offload all the things you're thinking about. I thought that was a funny mom joke, guys. But anyways, yeah, offload using your ChatGPT. On the other hand, journaling, yeah, and this is what we talk about, even when you're using when I said you need to believe in yourself and also appreciate who you are, one of the things that my overthinking that has enabled me to do is learn how to make processes. To be able to structure my thoughts and to stay focused, my new end outcome has been, how have I managed to either circumvent something or have I been able to improve something so that my brain doesn't keep in a loop of thinking about this thing that either didn't come to pass because it either didn't sit well with me emotionally, or I feel like it's a failure in terms of the outcome that's supposed to happen. So journaling and structuring and having conversations helps bring it out a lot. Yeah, and this is why in terms of learning how to communicate in a group of people and even learning why it's important to speak up in your meetings. And for those of you who are curious, some of our services at Osotwa include meeting transformation, where we teach people how to become more confident and to structure their meetings to be able to have better conversations. So please join us for our next, or follow us online to get our next training. And there's also the Confident Communicator, which is a spin-off from our previous webinar in terms of how do you learn to step up. Yeah, but Sam is also going to talk about some of the bare minimums that you can apply in tomorrow and the day afterwards at work, right? And yeah, that's what I would answer to you, Doreen. So over to you, Sam.
Awesome. Thank you so much for what you've shared. We learn from each other. I was taking some notes here. So when it comes to communication, the first thing is understand your audience. Actually, it's very important to ask yourself, who am I actually talking to? So that so that you can even do background research on, my team is like this. This is what they've been going through. Right now, as we speak, there's a governor in Kenya who is under fire because he didn't know that she's speaking to Kenyans who are actually mourning a fallen hero. And I'm sorry to use that analogy because yesterday I was having that conversation. It's, you don't just understand your audience, understand the context, Enter into the room.
Mm.
And then now you can now start applying some of these small tactics. Number one, use humor. Leverage on humor when you realize, hey, it's a bit tense in here. And Joy has done it very well when she's, she made a joke, then say, oh, I thought that was a funny mom joke. And we all of a sudden, yeah, we were engaged. The other thing is use stories. Actually, most probably most of you are leading Africans. If you remember in geography and the GHC when you were young, remember oral narratives were one of the things that we used as a community to actually pass information. We actually love stories. Use stories instead of giving facts and facts and facts. Use a story, an analogy, a metaphor. That will help. That will help you. Then leverage on the crowd. Let's say, for example, you know very well you have 5 key points you need to pass, and you have a crowd where these guys are highly engaging. Tell them by the end of this conversation, I need us to talk about faith, courage, and outline them. And please welcome them and tell them if I forget to mention any of them by the end of the webinar, let me know. Because the crowd you are having are going to have divergent they're going to have some digressing issues and whatnot. So you are using them. You're using their energy to help you. Then, very important, your tone. Tonal variation is very important when you're having, especially a verbal communication. If it's something exciting, sound excited. I can't come here and say, guys, I've just won $1 billion. You don't even believe I've won $1 billion. There's no way I'm being effective in that communication. But I'm like, hey guys, oh my God, I've just won $1 billion. Even you're there with me. So your tone, raise it. If it's something sad, tone it down. If it's something exciting, tone it. If it's something of importance, practice something we call the pause. Before dropping the bombshell, pause. Then introduce the bombshell. And then ask open-ended questions. Ask questions. Ask, what do you think about the effective habits of a good leader? Then they'll tell you. Chances are those people are going to give you things you already have in your notes. So that's what I can say.
Yes, Anjali.
Okay, I'll take the question on difficult teams.
Yes.
So I think what I'd say is establish what is difficult. Is it that they're not performing? Is it that there's conflict? Is it that there's low esteem in the team? And also, when you've established what is it that's making it difficult, then also look at things like, am I focusing on the person in the team, or am I focusing on the issue? Because a lot of times you focus on the person. You're like, this team is not doing this. You guys are not doing this. You guys, no, focus on the issue. What's the issue we're trying to deal with? And then lastly, I'll say recognize their efforts. A lot of people in teams feel undervalued because we always focus on what is the outcome. Did you deliver this? Did you deliver this? Where's this report? Did you finish this task? But just recognize the effort that has been put in, even if the outcome has not been achieved, even if that report is not on time. Recognize that people have made an effort and you value that effort. And you find what happens is you start to shift the way they look at you, the way they handle you as a leader, because you start to build trust slowly. So that's what I would say based on what we've seen work. And it's something we just need to practice.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, as we are coming to a close, I know we're 1 minute over, and for the 35 of you that are here, thank you so much. At Critical Mass, we're at around 50. So for those of you who are still here, thank you so much for staying on board. We really do appreciate you. And we would love to hear feedback from you guys, yeah? The speakers are going to create their last parting shot, but in the meantime, we would really appreciate feedback from you. Yeah, as Angela has just said, it's important to appreciate people's efforts. Yeah, so us as your the people who have congregated and created this webinar, we don't know whether we're actually doing the best unless we actually get feedback from you guys. And especially for those of you who have followed from our first webinar, I think when you heard Sam talking, you could also hear Brad talking for those of you who joined our previous webinar, and understanding what are some of the specifics. And just to pick up on what Sam said, the chain in leadership, yeah, is particularly this, guys, that to be an effective and a marvelous leader, it starts from the way you communicate, how you communicate internally, how you connect with people, how you actually get to understand what they need. Yeah. Because of that, that's how you actually stem into influence. Your ability to consider others and being able to meet those considerations, being able to meet those outcomes. That is where influence comes from, that you're actually getting everybody to do what needs to be done. You're showing the appreciation that needs to be shown, right? And being able to keep it in a momentous manner in terms of we do it all the time. This is the best practice. This is how we keep it going. This is where your credibility comes from, so that your credibility is no longer in the words that you say, but as Kesam had also brought out, it's how you get people to catch on, to practice, to expand the boundaries, to keep the boundaries, so that you have better relationships moving forward. Yeah. And with that, that's actually how you move into being the leader that you want to be. The other component that we are going to be touching on in our next webinar, and we also have a lot of conversations where online we are getting people to participate, is we're going to move into decision making and critical thinking. That's what's going to be installed for you. So before I get into that and what is up next, I would love to ask Angie and Sam to give their parting shot in terms of what are some of like one or two things, at least like the one thing you make sure that nobody should forget as they're living here. And is there any other opportunities where people can meet you? Because we will be sharing that as well in our thank you messaging to everybody. So over to you, Angie and Sam.
Okay, my last and parting shot is thank you for being here. But I would like to say to everyone here, you know, in this day of technology, we are rushing. If you want to be a good leader, in whatever capacity, take time to pause and reflect. Stop, think, allow yourself to take a deep breath, and believe me, it'll do you a lot of good. And if you can practice that every day or every other day or every week, just pause and reflect. And there's a book that I read, and it's called Pause. It's by Dr. Patricia Muragame. It's available in our bookstores. Pick up a copy, and it's very easy to read and practice. And where can you find us? Joy mentioned in February, we have a leadership training session, 12th and 13th of February. Sign up, join us, and we hope to see you there. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, to say thank you for giving us your precious time. Just come here and listen to these Kenyans who are trying to make a difference here and in the world. So my parting shots, number one, you have to believe that you're a great deal. You are a big deal. And you have to walk and move in that confidence that you're a great deal because you are a leader. The final one is a story that I normally like to give. That it says that when I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I know some of you know that story. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. Then I realized that was such a heavy burden. So I decided to change my nation. Then when I realized I can't change my nation, I decided to go back and change my town. Then I realized also that I was not making enough impact. So I decided to focus on my family and make a change in my family. I realized also that was a bit very difficult. So I started changing myself. And now that I'm an old man, I've realized that if long ago I started changing myself, then I would have made an impact on my family. And my family would have made an impact on my town. And then my town would have changed my nation. And my nation would have changed the world. So start with yourself. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Can we please give our panelists a round of applause? Yeah. Thank you so much for helping us demystify and bring out the leadership chain and we are looking forward to connecting with you. And guys, what if I told you that there is an opportunity to meet these people in person aside from in February? I am bringing them to the sandbox for an open day where we're going to have a 1 hour master class session where you can actually get the literal tips and tricks. And the session after that is going to be on practical activities that you can go with and go and implement for yourselves and within your company to make your lives better. Yeah. So please join us. To be able to get the invitation for the open day, you really do need to sign up on, give us feedback. The last question on the feedback link asks you, are you going to or are you interested on our open day on the 31st of this month, which is not this Friday, the next Friday. And it is literally for just 2.5 hours of your time to self-improve, to grow, to learn, and to be like-minded people, and to basically get more than you bargained for. I joke. But more realistically speaking, thank you so much. We have gotten so much more than we bargained for when we reached out to all of you. And for those of you who are still on the call, I can't believe it. Okay. I am very excited and really appreciative for you who have made the time. And for those of you who follow us on Osotwa, please keep following us. Part of our conversation happens on our channels in terms of on WhatsApp or on Instagram. For those of you who feel like there's a place that you can't really talk about some of these things, please come and vent to us. We have a venting Monday where we ask a question tag question, and you can say anything and everything you feel like. It's part of what actually enables us to know what to build in terms of the conversation for the webinar that's coming up. So join us for the open day where you get to interact with these amazing panelists, Angie and Sam. And please join us for our next webinar. And thank you very much. My name has been Joy Thuo. I am your moderator, founder, CEO of Osotwa, and looking forward to engaging with you further. And may you be blessed and be able to take all of these tips and tricks to enhance your leadership capabilities, not just within your title, but within your behavior and believing in who you are. We believe in who you are. So all the very best. Thank you very much. Have a great and wonderful evening. Bye. All right, for those of you who are still listening in, please don't forget to drop off so that we can have our debrief session, and we're also about to stop recording. Thank you. All right, bye Daniel, bye Jay.
So,